Imagine waking up one morning, and your life is no longer ordinary. You're not just anyone, you're one of the world's most wanted fugitives. The FBI is on your tail, you're entangled in a massive financial scandal, and there are hundreds of charges against you. But where are you? You're lounging on a tropical island, a cocktail in hand, basking in the sun without a care in the world. Sounds like the plot of a Hollywood movie, right? But no, this is the real-life story of Robert Vesco, America's most infamous con artist and the mastermind behind one of the 20th century's largest financial scandals. But let's rewind for a moment, back to the beginning, where it all started. Detroit, 1935. Robert Lee Vesco was born into an ordinary working-class family in Motor City. Just think about it, nobody could have predicted that this child would one day become one of the most notorious fugitives in history. His father worked in one of the city's massive automobile factories, a tough, gritty environment. Picture it, the constant hum of machinery, the smoke-filled skies, the relentless pace of industrial life. This was the world Robert Vesco grew up in. Life wasn't easy for the Vesco family. The Great Depression had left deep scars on the American economy, and the struggle to make ends meet was real. Robert's childhood was shaped by these hardships. But rather than breaking him, these challenges fueled his ambition. Even as a child, he watched his parents toil away, learning early on the value of money and the power it held. Imagine being so young and already understanding that money wasn't just a necessity, it was the key to something greater. It's clear that Vesco wasn't like other kids, he was always thinking ahead, always looking for opportunities. Robert attended Cass Technical High School, a prestigious institution, but let's be honest, school wasn't really his thing. His mind was constantly elsewhere. Engineering classes? Boring. Algebra? Tedious. While his peers were content to follow the standard path, Vesco's mind was racing with bigger ideas. He was fascinated by the world of finance, by the idea of making money work for him rather than the other way around. So, when he decided to drop out of school, his family was understandably disappointed. His father, in particular, was worried about what the future held for his son. Perhaps they thought Vesco was just another dreamer, a boy chasing impossible dreams. But Vesco never looked back. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he was willing to take risks to get it. And so, with just $800 in his pocket, an amount that might not seem like much today, but back then, it was a small fortune, Vesco made his first foray into the world of business. Imagine being so young, with so little, yet taking such a bold step. Vesco started small, brokering deals in the aluminum market. It was a modest beginning, matching buyers with sellers and pocketing small commissions. But as they say, from little acorns, mighty oaks grow. Vesco's early ventures quickly turned profitable, and he reinvested his earnings to expand his operations. Soon, he was buying stakes in struggling aluminum plants, flipping them for profit. This was his first real taste of success in the investment world. But Vesco wasn't satisfied with small victories. No, he had his sights set on much bigger prizes. The success in the aluminum market was just the beginning. By the early 1960s, Vesco had outgrown Detroit. He knew that to achieve the greatness he dreamed of, he needed to be where the action was, New York City, the financial capital of the world. Just imagine the bright lights, the fast pace, the endless opportunities. Vesco moved to New York, confident that he would find success in the big city. And he wasn't wrong. In New York, Vesco's ambitions only grew. He worked in various industries, gaining valuable experience and learning the ins and outs of big business. But his real interest lay in high-stakes financial deals, in the art of buying and selling companies, in the thrill of hostile takeovers. In 1965, Vesco made his first major move. He acquired International Controls Corporation, ICC. This was no small feat. ICC was a significant company, and Vesco's takeover was aggressive, even ruthless. But Vesco didn't just take over ICC, he transformed it. He was a master of corporate finance, using debt to finance further acquisitions, rapidly expanding the company's portfolio. Under his leadership, ICC grew into a conglomerate, acquiring airlines, manufacturing plants, and more. Vesco's strategy was clear: grow fast, grow big, and dominate the market. And it worked. By the late 1960s, Vesco was no longer just a businessman, he was a force to be reckoned with in the financial world. His shares in ICC were worth millions, but for Vesco, this was just the beginning. He wasn't content with merely being successful, he wanted to be the best, the richest, the most powerful. Now, let's pause for a moment and think about this. You've built an empire, you're at the top of your game, but you still want more. This insatiable hunger for success drove Vesco to his next great adventure, Investors Overseas Service, IOS. By 1970, IOS was one of the world's largest mutual fund companies, managing a massive $1.5 billion portfolio. But the company was in trouble. IOS was under investigation by the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, and it was struggling financially. To Vesco, this wasn't a problem, it was an opportunity. He saw IOS vulnerabilities as a chance to swoop in and take control. The company's founder, Bernard Kornfeld, was desperately trying to keep the company afloat while fending off the SEC's scrutiny. But Vesco was relentless. He launched a hostile takeover, using every trick in the book to wrest control of the company from Kornfeld. The battle was intense, and as Vesco tightened his grip on IOS, rumors and accusations began to swirl. The SEC accused him of embezzling millions from IOS, funneling funds through a complex web of dummy corporations, and even breaking into a Swiss bank vault to steal shares. Just picture it, this isn't a movie plot, this is real life. Vesco, however, wasn't fazed by the accusations. He knew the game and he played it well. But he also knew when it was time to make a strategic retreat. In February 1973, with the SEC closing in, Vesco made his move. He boarded his private jet and fled to Costa Rica, taking with him an estimated $200 million from IOS coffers. And just like that, Robert Vesco became one of the most wanted men in the world. Costa Rica was a paradise for Vesco. He wasn't just hiding, he was thriving. He quickly established himself as a major player in the country, forming close ties with President José Figueres. Imagine having a president in your back pocket. Vesco's charm and wealth were his greatest weapons. Figueres even went so far as to pass a law specifically designed to protect Vesco from extradition. They called it the Vesco Law. With the president on his side, Vesco lived like royalty, purchasing a lavish mansion and enjoying a life of luxury. For a while, it seemed like Vesco had found the perfect hideaway. He was untouchable, enjoying the high life in Costa Rica while the SEC and the FBI scrambled to catch up with him. But as we all know, nothing lasts forever. In 1978, political tides shifted in Costa Rica. Figueres was out of office, and the new president, Rodrigo Carrizo, had no intention of sheltering Vesco. The writing was on the wall, Vesco had to flee again. This time, his destination was the Bahamas. And if you think he lived lavishly in Costa Rica, the Bahamas was on another level. Vesco settled in Nassau, where he bought a golden-gated mansion. Yes, you heard that right, Golden Gates. But of course, with great wealth and notoriety comes great scrutiny. Vesco's activities in the Bahamas soon attracted attention, particularly from U.S. authorities. His connections with notorious figures like Carlos Leder, a leader of the Medellin cartel, raised red flags with the CIA. Vesco was playing a dangerous game, and he knew it. Life in the Bahamas wasn't just a tropical paradise for Vesco, it was a ticking time bomb. He was involved in all sorts of shady deals, from drug trafficking to money laundering. The CIA was keeping close tabs on him, and it was only a matter of time before things would come crashing down. But Vesco, ever the survivor, managed to stay one step ahead of the law. He spent his days lounging by the pool, enjoying the best the Bahamas had to offer, but there was always that shadow hanging over him, the constant fear of being caught. But Vesco wasn't one to sit idly by and wait for the inevitable. He was always looking for the next big move, the next place where he could set up shop and continue his high-flying lifestyle. And so, his next destination was Antigua. In Antigua, Vesco had grand plans. He attempted to buy the island of Barbuda with the idea of turning it into his own sovereign state. Just think about that, Vesco wasn't just trying to escape the law, he was trying to create his own country. But, like many of Vesco's dreams, this one didn't come to fruition. The plan fell through, and Vesco once again found himself on the move. By the early 1980s, Vesco had made his way to Cuba. For him, Cuba was the ultimate refuge, a place where he believed he could finally live in peace, far from the reach of American authorities. But life in Cuba wasn't as idyllic as he had hoped. The Cuban government welcomed Vesco, but with strict conditions. He was to stay out of trouble and refrain from any financial dealings. For a while, Vesco complied. His health was deteriorating, and he seemed content to lead a quiet life. But old habits die hard, and Vesco couldn't resist the lure of one last big score. In 1989, Vesco found himself embroiled in yet another scandal, this time involving drug smuggling. But Vesco, being Vesco, managed to wiggle his way out of this one too. However, the 1990s would bring even more trouble. Vesco got involved with none other than Donald Nixon, the nephew of former U.S. President Richard Nixon. Together, they embarked on a dubious venture in Cuba, promoting a drug called Trixilin, or TX, which they claimed could boost the immune system. Vesco, always the smooth operator, convinced Fidel and Raul Castro to support the project. For a while, it seemed like Vesco was back on top. The Cuban government was on board, and the drug trials were underway. But as you might expect, things didn't go according to plan. Vesco's old ways caught up with him. He attempted to defraud both Nixon and the Cuban government, and this time, there was no escape. In 1996, the Cuban authorities arrested Vesco and sentenced him to 13 years in prison for fraud and illicit economic activities. His wife, Lydia, was also convicted on lesser charges and released in 2005. So, here we have Vesco, the man who once lived like a king, now confined to a Cuban prison cell. It's a dramatic fall from grace, but Vesco's story doesn't end there. In 2007, reports surfaced that Vesco had died of lung cancer in a Havana hospital. The New York Times published his obituary, and that seemed to be the end of the story. But was it really? There are whispers, rumors, that Vesco didn't die at all. Some say he faked his death and fled to Sierra Leone, where he lived out his days in secrecy. Whether there's any truth to these claims, we may never know. What we do know is that Robert Vesco's life was one of ambition, deceit, and relentless pursuit of power. He was a man who broke the rules, who bent the system to his will, and who managed to evade justice time and time again. But in the end, even Vesco couldn't outrun his past forever. His story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked greed and the lengths to which some will go to achieve their desires. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more incredible tales from history's darker corners. See you in the next video.